Will everyone please join me in Basho and repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you. Does everyone know what year this is? Yes, the year of the rabbit. That's very good. I love that. I love that. So for some of us, we associate the year with the animal, the Chinese zodiac that it's associated with. That's very good. Who here knows the numeral or what year we are in? 2023. 2000. Why did I do that? That's because I have a terrible habit when I sign things at the very beginning of the year, when I sign papers, sign checks, those kinds of things. I have a terrible habit of putting 2022 on, or putting the previous year still on there. And that's because as a human being, I am still attached to the previous year, or I am still used to saying 2022. When in actuality, it is 2023. For the Dharma School students and for the Dharma School Dharma Talk, I actually wanted to go back to the basics of our teachings of Buddhism. For those of you who know, we have three treasures that we pay homage to most of the weeks that we are here. The first treasure is the Buddha. Very good. The next one is the Dharma. The third one is the very good. Everyone's been listening. So for the next couple of months, I would actually like to talk about, especially for the Dharma School classes, I would like to talk about the importance or the significance of the Buddha or the great teacher, the historical Buddha who gave us all the teachings that we still rely on to this very day, over 2,500 years ago. So for those of you who remember, the historical Buddha was named, he's known by many names as the Great Enlightened One or the World-Honored One, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of the Shakya clan, or Gautama, right? So, and then of course Siddhartha Gautama, who was the person before he became the Buddha. But for the Dharma School students, we all know that one of the main truths that the Buddha first talked about was that life is not always easy. Life is a bumpy road. The Buddha's teaching, or the Buddha himself, was so inspired by the unease and the tension he saw in the society around him. Now, I'm certain many of the Dharma School students probably got some wonderful presents throughout this year, or throughout the holiday season, correct? But think about receiving presents like that every single day of your life. Can you imagine that? Like if you got something you really, really wanted, and you received that, or something like that, every single day of your life, would you be happy? Would you be happy? Oh, someone shook their head, no, very good. You would not be happy. Those special things would no longer become special to you. But that is what happened to Prince Siddhartha, okay? So Prince Siddhartha was just given wealth and money and leisurely things day after day after day. His father never said no. His father only wanted him to have the best. But eventually, and as one Dharma School student so wisely shook their head no, it did not make Prince Siddhartha happy. And so what did Prince Siddhartha do? Prince Siddhartha left the palace to look out amongst the people. And what do you think he saw? He saw old age, sickness, a person who passed away, and a person who renounced all worldly pleasures, all worldly things. Now, I'm certain all the Dharma School students here probably could not go a week. I'm going to say a week. Maybe you can go a day, but you probably can't go a week without your cell phones or your mobile devices or some type of a screen, correct? Maybe you can go a day, But I think after a day, you would start to get really upset. You would have to know what's going on in the world. But he saw this person and was inspired. Is this the path that I must choose in order to help end suffering in this world? And this is what inspired him to take that path, seeing all of these sufferings around him and a possible way to spiritual enlightenment. Now, as it turned out, of course, Prince Siddhartha at the time did not encounter enlightenment by following the rigid path of the spiritual renunciant. It's almost like, I would say, as we come into this New Year's resolution, for the Dharma School students, how many of you have made New Year's resolutions? No? How many of the adults have made New Year's resolutions? Okay, very good. How many of you keep to those New Year's resolutions? And it's okay. Yeah, we kind of go, we start off strong, right? I actually noticed, you know that we live, that we are here in front of the University YMCA, right? And I noticed on January 1st, there was a whole lot of people inside there. And so, people probably make these New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do all these things. And then what happens? They go every day of the year. They go every day. They go every day. They work out really hard. And by the end of the week, they're burnt out, right? Strict diet, and then I'm going to be happy. And then he went on this really strict diet, only ate 1 grain of rice per day, all of things. How many of you think you can 1 grain of rice per day? No. The Buddha did this, and guess what? It didn't work. So what happened? The Buddha, I should refer to him as Prince Siddhartha. Prince Siddhartha realized there is a middle way, that there is a way of enlightenment without going extreme to one side or extreme to the other. And this is, I think, really important for us to remember as we get into this new year. We all want to make New Year's resolutions. We all want to be like a famous person, right? We see these famous people in the Marvels. And of course, we see the image of the Buddha. We see the great teacher. And we think, oh, I wish I were more calm and serene, just like the wonderful Buddha. And who wouldn't want to feel that way? Who doesn't want to do that? Of course, we all want to do that. Dharma School students, I'm certain you see these calm images of the Buddha. Look at the picture behind you there. There's the Buddha who's teaching his disciples, right? The 5 disciples. What a calm and serene looking Buddha. Isn't that wonderful? But guess what? The Buddha didn't just snap and happen overnight. The Buddha had to go through many bits of hard work in order to achieve that. Now, of course, we look at images like that and we think, this is the Buddha, this is the teacher, this is who I have to be. But more important than the image itself or what he's doing right there is the teaching and the understanding that he came to, okay? So Dharma School students, I want you to remember this, that with every great teaching, okay, with every great beginning of a great teaching, there is a great teacher, okay? There is a teacher that you must trust. There is a teacher that you must, that you must learn to follow. And of course, you probably have your teachers in school. Many of our Sangha members here are wonderful teachers. But for us, this teacher is the Buddha. And even though the Buddha is no longer physically with us, the Buddha's words still exist. So this is why we pay homage and respect to this teacher. Because while we have the scriptures and the teachings written down in books, it all had to start from Shakyamuni Buddha. If Buddha were not enlightened, how would we have this teaching? If Buddha did not see, or if Prince Siddhartha did not see the many sufferings that were going on outside of the palace, how would we have this wonderful teaching? All of these things had to happen in order for Prince Siddhartha to realize full enlightenment. But one of the main aspects of Prince Siddhartha and eventually the Buddha that we have to become grateful to is the fact that the Buddha did not hoard and did not keep this wealth of knowledge to himself. He shared this teaching. He had this calling to share this teaching to everybody, to one and all. and to a teaching and to all of us who are still listening to this very day. So it is very important that we recognize the importance of this teacher. If this teacher did not exist, this teaching would not be here. And if we did not have this teaching, how would we end our suffering? So with this in mind, Dharma School students, I would like to wish you all a Happy New Year. Make your New Year's resolutions. It's okay if you break it from time to time. It's okay if sometimes you have a cheat day or if you have a day that you eat the ice cream that you weren't supposed to eat. But always remember that the great teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, has always given us teachings for our benefit, has always given us teachings for us to listen to deeply. If we did not have these teachings, we would not be here today. We would not have this wonderful community. If it were not for the Buddha, we would not have Tacoma Buddhist Temple. Without the members here listening to this wonderful teaching and to continue the temple to this day. So with that in mind, Dharma School students, I wish you all Happy New Year, and I hope to see you continue to come almost every weekend if you can. And I would like you all to please join me in Gassho. And repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam mandats, nam mandats, nam mandats. Will you all please join me in Gassho? The Buddha said, "Now I have expounded this sutra for all sentient beings and have enabled you to see the Buddha of immeasurable life and everything in his land. If you have questions about what to do, you should ask me now, so that you may not give rise to further doubt after I have entered nirvana. In the future, all the sutras will become extinct. However, out of compassion and pity, I will ensure that this sutra alone remains for a further 100 years. Those sentient beings who encounter this sutra will attain emancipation in accordance with their aspiration." Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy New Year once again. I'm so happy to see all of you. Even with the Dharma School students going to their classes, I can see that the Hondo is still nicely packed. So that's wonderful. Love to continue seeing that. The passage that I read from this morning comes from the Sutra of the Buddha of Immeasurable Light and Life. That is one of the 3 Pure Land Sutras that we revere in our school of Jodo Shinshu. But I picked this particular passage because this one comes at almost the very end of the sutra. This one comes when the great Shakyamuni Buddha is wrapping up his Dharma talk and wrapping up his sermon to his followers and telling them that you notice he says, if you have any questions, you better ask me now, before I go into nirvana. And this is because there is this acknowledgement of one of the irrefutable truths of this life is that life is always impermanent, right? We do not stay the same forever. And as I talked about in a previous Dharma talk in New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, when I look at a picture of myself compared to when I was in high school, I look very different. I don't know how Tom Cruise does it. He seems to look the same, throughout the years and everything. I'm looking at him and I go, how did he stay the same? I don't know, maybe Scientology has something to it, I don't know. Sorry, I just thought I'd start off with a joke. But again, one of the things that you notice about in our readings, right, when we talk about these sutras, but also we just recited it today in the 3 treasures, right? If we do not receive the truth of the Dharma in this life, in what life shall we find it, right? That's a common thread, I think, that we see in a lot of our sutras. And I think this is actually a very good thing to talk about at the very beginning of a new year, 2023. The Buddha says that our time is precious. The Buddha said that we don't have an infinite amount of time to listen to the teachings and to digest the doctrine. You know, we always, as human beings, take for granted tomorrow. We take for granted next year. We measure our lives in the span of 365 days and say that's a year. And then we always make our New Year's plans, and I'm already making my vacation plans for the end of this year already. And that's because I, as a human, or I, as a person or a Bonbu being, assume that I'm going to make it there. But the ultimate scary truth that the Buddha casually, or not casually, very, very cautiously and very compassionately reminds us is that this time of ours is not guaranteed. We think that we can just go or leave it until tomorrow. We think that, we think, of course, to ourselves that, oh, I don't have to go to temple this weekend. I can just put it off until next weekend. All of these things come to our mind. Of course, when we wake up in the morning, we have to rouse ourselves, and we have to drink our morning coffees to kind of get centered and to get ready for the day. For those of us who have 9-to-5 jobs on a regular day basis, we kind of stick to these routines. But one thing's for certain, right, of course, is that the Buddha really told us is that there is no guarantee that when we close our eyes for the night, that we are going to wake up the next morning. And the same thing he said, actually, when he was giving another sermon, was the breath that you just took could be the last one that you take. So therefore, you should definitely treasure the time that you have now. How wonderful it is to be alive. But not just to be alive, but to be born into causes and conditions that allowed you to come here to listen to the Dharma, to listen to the Buddha's teachings, to listen to the Buddha, to listen to the Sutra of the Buddha of immeasurable light and life. But one of the great things about this sutra is that the Buddha said in this particular one was that eventually the teachings in the very distant future are going to all die out. They're all going to disappear into oblivion, and then the world cycle will kind of renew, and then Maitreya, the next Buddha, will come. But even after 2,500 years of the Buddha's passing, or of the Buddha's existence, I should say, physical existence in this world, his teachings still live on. And for me personally, the teaching of the Buddha of immeasurable light and life is one of the most precious ones of them all. And this is because of the primal vow, the 18th vow, which says that, which basically states, if you'll indulge me for just a second, if, when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters who with sincere and entrusting heart aspire to be born in my land and say my name even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain the perfect enlightenment. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses and those who slander the right Dharma. Namandas, namandas, namandas. This is the 18th vow. This is the primal vow of Amida Buddha, or of Bodhisattva Dharmakara, who states that he will unequivocally save all sentient beings from this world of suffering and samsara, the cycle of birth and death. That he will actually, after we pass away, will be born instantly into the Pure Land to become awakened beings to guide others there. This is so important for us because, as we know, this life as we know it is still filled with constant struggle, with constant bumps in the road. We are just starting to get out of a pandemic. Our society is, kind of at a tense time at the moment. We all have, and we, of course, don't really know what the future holds. I think, in many ways, the pandemic has taught us that life is very, very unpredictable. For those of you who had to suffer the airplane fiasco that happened this past winter vacation, did any of you get your flights canceled because of that? Oh, well, good. I'm glad that you were all able to avoid that. My brother was stranded at my parents' house because his flight on Southwest was canceled. So he was stranded for about 5 days at my parents' house because he wasn't able to get another flight booked. Again, all of these things that we take for granted, the flights that we schedule, the things that we plan, and of course, making it to next year. We all have these things in mind. we all become attached to them, and then when things don't go our way, and I am just as guilty of this as any of you are, we become upset, especially for me when I'm driving and there's traffic, or when I get the signal that my flight's been delayed. I get upset when my flight just gets delayed. My brother got his flight canceled. But of course, the Buddha teaches us that we are very, very fortunate to be here as we are now, to be able to be born in the causes and conditions to listen to the Dharma, to listen to his teachings. I think it's very important that we recognize that the Buddha's words of the Sutra of the Buddha of Immeasurable Light and Life still rings true with us throughout this year. We have just come to this new year. We have come to the temple. We are all able to gather in person to listen to the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, and then we are all able to go downstairs afterwards and ring in the new year with the wonderful Shinyan Kai that wonderful members such as Lin Ray Hubble, Crystal Inge, and June Akita have been able to put on for us. I am very eager to go downstairs and see the wonderful slideshow and performances of the taiko. But these are things that we must not take for granted. It's easy to take things for granted. It's easy to take this temple for granted. It's easy to take each other for granted. We are human beings. It's what naturally happens from time to time. But this is why we come to temple as well, to listen to the wise words of Shakyamuni Buddha and realize that nothing in life is ever guaranteed. As we come and approach this new year of 2023, let us do so with a full heart and wonderful optimism and of course, with deep listening to the words of Shakyamuni Buddha. I would like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to come to this wonderful time of year to the temple. And in closing, will you please join me in Gassho? The Buddha said, "Now I have expounded this sutra for all sentient beings and have enabled you to see the Buddha of immeasurable life and everything in his land. If you have questions about what to do, you should ask me now, so that you may not give rise to further doubt after I have entered nirvana. In the future, all the sutras will become extinct. However, out of compassion and pity, I will ensure that this sutra alone remains for a further 100 years. Those sentient beings who encounter this sutra will attain emancipation in accordance with their aspiration." Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.